Football's back in Happy Valley, and we got to see it. A full practice with the Nittany Lions yesterday. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Sean Fitz with me. He was out there on the practice field as well. We all were. Ryan on vacation, so he missed yesterday. But all four of us were out there yesterday bringing you the sights, the sounds. Didn't bring you any smells, but I actually have opinions on everything, including the music from practice yesterday. So buckle up. It's a full BWI Live. Normally the recruiting show here on Thursday, but this is very important. We're going to see practice again today, so this is just all talking about Penn State practice. And so, Fitz, welcome to the show. Are you ready to get into it?
Yes. I believe if we can quote yesterday's music, there's a story at the bottom of this bottle, and I'm the pen. So we're ready to go.
I want to start there. Whoever.
I know you do. Like, everybody knows that you do. Based on that intro, you're like, oh, football is great. The music. Oh,
the music was amazing. I've never felt more seen in my life. And, like, there's just one way to describe this. It was the most millennial white guy music that's ever come through the Lash practice speakers. Under the previous organization, they jokingly had White Boy Wednesday, where they'd put in some country music. I felt as a subcategory of person, I felt entirely excluded by the process. And here we are, fully validated, listening to everything from Red Hot Chili Peppers to Linkin Park to Paramore, I think, came across the speakers the other day. Like, just, it was great. Like, they took the 2009 alt-rock playlist off my iPod, and they just put it on the speakers. It was fantastic. Also, social media loved it yesterday as well, so I'm not alone.
So Jevin Stone's in charge of that. He's Jevin's the video coordinator. He's multiple time Big Ten coordinator. He's awesome. He's been here since the Paterno years. And he's like at top of his game, like best in the business. But he's also in charge of the music. And yesterday, Jevin's not into pop punk early 2000s type stuff as much as some people. And he's like, I went up to him. I'm like, hey, just so you know, like, this is my lifting mix from like 15 years ago. And he's like, good. I have no idea what it is. So he's not quite into that sort of genre. And but he's happy to make people happy. So
clearly what he did was he just like Google searched top, he just found the top of the top of the top.
Yeah.
Bangers on bangers. And of course, the thing that was actually happening was the football. And quickly, before we get into that, just a reminder, Fitz and I wrote about all of the stuff that you're going to hear today, and we're getting all the details that we have are over on the message board and in our articles at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Right now, there's a 75% off sale. 75% off. The only time you get a deal like that is when you're buying T-shirts at the end of summer season and all the fall line is coming in, or it's the spring, and you're buying like an extra small shirt for somebody that you love. Because those are the only things left on the sales rack at Kohl's. Those are the only times you get a 75% discount on anything. And so
this is better is what he meant to say.
And what I meant was this is way better because this is the full-fledged product exactly when you want it. All the details from camp, all the feedback we're going to be getting. You're going to get that for, what does it, Fitz? What's 75% off? Like, what's the actual dollar amount?
It's going to be like $30 a year. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's great. Like, it's like I saw it and I'm like, why are we doing this? We're giving it away. So, but
every time I click the mute button, it doesn't work the first time. So I apologize for that. Perfect punctuation point. Great punctuation point on the end of that. Link in the description of the video. Let's get into it. You were on the defensive side of the field and got to see Danton Lynn's squad for the first time. So what did you think? What were some of the things that stood out to you?
This defense is a hybrid defense, right? We've talked about it all off season, and we kind of saw the flowers blooming there, if you will. Couple of personnel notes. They had Chase Bacon running at edge. Not terribly surprising. We talked about getting him in there at edge, but at the same time, we thought that he's going to play linebacker, but also play some defensive end. Yesterday he was a defensive end the entire time. And that's interesting to me because this guy played a ton of snaps at Iowa State over the last couple of years, was a starting linebacker. I think it's pretty obvious your starting linebackers, Cooper Evil and Tony Rojas. So how do you play around with that? How do you play around with it from the one side, the defensive end side? Well, Caleb Bacon's going to move over there. And then you've got the hybrid linebacker side where Marcus Neal's playing a little bit of that. So like
Yep.
there's all sort of blending of lines all over the place.
Yeah, the secondary, the safety room is a major factor in that. We've been talking about that all offseason. We got to see that in practice. And then I just like let's pontificate a little bit about this with Caleb Bacon. Obviously, we're going to see a little bit more today, but he was with the linebackers all spring. So this was not necessarily a I don't know if this was a position switch, but more of like, let's sharpen the skills that you need. Did you read it that way, or do you think it's a little more serious than that?
I thought that it was going to be that, and then he just stayed with them, even when they went to some 7-on-7 work, some back seven work. I thought you would throw him in there. Kel Brazino was a little bit limited yesterday, so Cooper Ebel was taking a ton of reps at Mike and just kind of getting everybody in the right spot, which makes a bunch of sense there. But I thought that we would see him float over there and play some will or just kind of find his way into the mic or something, because he can play all three positions there, but he stayed with the defensive ends the entire time, even in 7-on-7. So like that was surprising to me, in a sense of, hey, we expected one thing and it seems like we might just get a full-blown position change instead of just kind of floating, if you will.
Yeah. The biggest difference is Tony Rojas is back, and Tony Rojas was out there as the starting will linebacker, so he wasn't in the spring, and that's where Bacon was playing. So maybe that maybe part of it as well. Maybe this was something in the works the whole time, but why practice that when Tony's not out there? So interesting. We'll obviously be monitoring it today. But speaking of Tony and the linebackers, what did you see? Everyone is very excited to see Tony Rojas back in a Penn State uniform.
Yeah, Tony looked good. It's one of those things where you can only gauge what you see, and they didn't ask them to do much. Yesterday was one of the NCAA mandated acclimation practices where you're getting used to the heat, which wasn't that hot yesterday. It was warm yesterday, but a beautiful day. But it was kind of, I don't want to say half speed, but it was not a full blown everybody going all out type of practice. They had some 7-on-7, which was great. They had some 1-on-1 stuff, but for the most part, it was keeping everybody up, keeping everybody healthy, and just not going through the motions has a negative connotation, but doing the things that they needed to do to get, to get some of that rust knocked off. T, I think you hit that mute button again, bud.
I'm off my game this morning. Okay, so one of the things, if you're watching here on the YouTube channel that you saw there, I can play it again, is just a quick drill where they were trying to work a move on the linebacker, and then the linebacker keeping his eyes on the running back during the move to simulate kind of like playing between the tackles and trying to get tackles for loss or get broken tackles. You saw some pretty good movement there from Tony Rojas going up against James Peoples, and the linebackers in general I thought looked good. Like just generally that group. I was over with the defense a little bit more and saw the defensive line more than anything. But linebackers.
What's interesting, what's interesting about that is Bacon and as I said, Brazino was kind of on his own. Even without those guys, we talked about the lack of depth last year. They still look to have guys that can run out there and play. Cam Smith got a ton of reps. John Klosterman, the transfer from Iowa State, who's mostly going to play special teams, he was in there a bunch. So there was that. And as I mentioned, Neal was playing kind of as close to that linebacker safety line as you could get. Although from what they were doing, it was, back seven versus skill players type stuff.
So that's one of the things that I'm curious about is, were they just working on base defense and base defense being a 4-2-5? So, we're going to put, these guys in certain positions based on that idea. And also, like, I'm sure they have an idea of what the offense is going to be working on. And something we can talk about a little later is what we saw from the offense. And does that just kind of match up with the day? Or is that more, even though we got to see a whole practice Fitz, there are certain aspects of, you only get to see a slice of the playbook because if you're on offense, you're practicing 5-6 plays maybe, building them to go into the 7-on-7, and then you work on your run game stuff, but you're not seeing the full playbook or everything that they've tried to incorporate during spring and summer football. And so even if you're not looking at it through a keyhole like we did before, if the door's open and you're kind of standing in it watching everything go on, there's a lot more that we haven't seen yet, and I'm just curious.
Yeah.
As always, want to know more.
Yeah, you always want to know more. And when you're covering a practice like this, you report on the reps that you see, and they magically become the reps that are all consuming for everyone, right?
Yep.
It's like, you get an offensive lineman that gets beat. Oh, all of a sudden he's terrible. But like this is just a snapshot of what we are able to see, which is more than prior years. But at the same time, there's still a lot of gray area between what, number one, what they're actually doing, number two, what the coaches see, and then what we see, because it's very different, because they know much more about this than we do.
Speaking of, I got some video of a new drill that I liked a lot at camp between the offensive and defensive line. Speaking of Caleb Bacon, there he is going up against Owen Alicini in this run game drill, which normally fits. You are always on it when it comes to the one-on-ones between the O-line and the D-line and what it normally is. So can you explain what everyone is expecting and then what happened yesterday? And I can explain the drill afterwards if you want.
So typically we got a group text going where we take notes and share notes with each other and make sure that we know what we're abreast of the situation. And okay, the offensive line's coming to the D-line. You know what this means. Pass rush one-on-one, get the little cone back there. We're going to go after the imaginary quarterback and maybe run some moves that we never run in actual games and stuff like that. Actually, that's more of a Under Armour camp type thing than a practice, Penn State practice thing, but you get the gist of it. So we get out there, and the first rep is I believe it was Malachi Goodman with a reach block with a seal block actually around the side of Ike Eziogu. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? So it was a run blocking drill. It was it was as as you called it, a run fit drill. So it was very different than the one-on-ones we're used to seeing. So tracking which wins were actually wins, harder when it's a run fit drill and things like that.
Oh, for sure.
It's I mean, hey, offensive line's tough, man. Like I don't envy those guys. But see, like that, you just saw Trevor Burr look like he got beat, but if they're running a sweep outside his left butt cheek, he won that rep. So like it's so much tougher to tell, but it is a more functional drill. Obviously you pass protect all the time, but at the same time, these things are how do these defensive linemen react to it is almost
it's great
value.
For the D-line.
Yeah, it's wonderful for the D-line. So that there's the value right there. So heads up, win versus loss, much tougher to navigate, but at the same time, a useful drill for them. And once I figured out what the hell was going on, which didn't take long, it was much more useful than I expected. Couple of standouts there. Brock Riker, the center, and also Dom Rowley had a really good reach block as well. But Brock Riker really impressed me. I again continue to hear good things about his position in getting them to be the offensive line that they want to be. And I think he's athletic. I think he's added some size a little bit. And, he's just a good physical, smart player. And I think that I'm excited to watch him in action.
No one wants to hear this, but Ike Eziogu as a run defender is pretty good. Just from a looks like position, the way he strikes, his pad level, playing on the outside. I think some of those things, you're right. Talking about the one you're looking here between him and Trevor Burr. I would call that almost a stalemate because he did win backside, but he also fell through the rep, and then Burr didn't hold on to the block long enough in those situations. But the way he looks, the way he moves, I thought he did a good job in those situations. Also, I was watching D-line kind of just off to the side doing their own stuff and going through the drills. He looks like a D tackle, but he's going to play D end.
Right. And that's a guy. So we ran those notes and someone had a question. It's like, hey, I don't remember much about him when he joined. I mean, he's not a flashy guy. He's not a high stat guy. I think he had 1 sack last year, but he played a 3-man front defensive end. So, if you're in the NFL, 3-4 defensive ends, you think of those guys, they're 290 pounds. They're essentially defensive tackles, but they're meant to hold up the guys behind them as defensive ends. And I don't know what we're going to see from him. Penn State staff continually brings him up like towards the top of the list, especially in the D line in terms of guys that they are very high on. Now, is that a familiarity thing? Is that a like, hey, this guy can actually break out in the Big Ten thing. I don't know. But at the same time, this is a guy they've been talking up for a while. So he was a 285 pound defensive end, 3-4 defensive end, essentially, at Iowa State.
Yep.
Now he's a 275 pound. He looks wonderful, by the way. He's a massive individual, and also very, very bubbly personality. We saw him back in February. He captivated a table by talking about his story and, where all he's been and what all he's done. It's really cool. But I'm just very curious how that plays out, especially on third downs. He sees himself as a pass rusher, and he was clear about that back in February. The sacks total doesn't quite bring it up, and I know stats don't always tell the full story, but if you watch the games last year, he was not asked to be a quote-unquote edge rusher. So I'm very curious to see what he brings to the table. I think he's going to start. I don't think there's any question about it, and I think he's probably the leader there. Also had a shadow. His little puppy on a leash was Jackson Ford, the freshman from Malvern Prep. It was
who does not look like a freshman.
Behind. He does not. I tell you what, he's. I'm thinking back to. How Josh Pate texted me in the middle of the show. Come on, man, be professional. No, I'm thinking back to the Nike camp or maybe it's Under Armour camp in Jersey a couple of years ago, and he's tall, long, skinny guy. And you're kind of wondering how the weight's going to come on. Well, the weights came on fast. He's got a massive lower half. He's 260 pounds right now.
Yep.
He looks great. Again, puppy with big feet. Is how I would describe him. He's going to catch up to that eventually, but he's going to be a 270 pound end, which I'm just stunned by thinking about back 2 years.
Yeah. He's, and the weight, like you mentioned, looks great. Moves pretty well given all of that, but in the context of what you just said of still learning how to move as a defensive end, there's two things. So there's moving with technique. And that is like, how are you supposed to, my first step is supposed to be here, my second step is supposed to be here, my hands are supposed to be doing this, and then that's the thinking part. And then there is the, how do you actually just physically move? How does your body move around the field? I think he moves pretty well in that second sense. And to your first point, like, yeah, you got the baby giraffe kind of going through the motions in that particular sense. Somebody asked yesterday, during the show, of what we expect to be different or what we are interested in seeing that could be different from the previous staff to Matt Campbell. And generally what I said yesterday holds true of most teams do everything the same way in terms of like, this period is going to build into this period, which is going to build into this period, which is going to build ultimately into 7-on-7 or whatever we're doing, at the most competitive aspect of it. Run game stuff, kind of the same. That drill we just saw, where it started that last conversation, I would say is one of the biggest differences I've seen I liked it a lot, because let's just go through this again for if you're watching on the YouTube channel. The offensive lineman starts the drill, and I noticed this even at Camp Fitz, where they don't have a whistle to start the play for the snaps and one-on-ones for prospects, because in reality, the offensive lineman gets to decide when the play starts. The offense gets to decide when the play starts. So I think maybe in this one they did have a snap or something like that, to indicate, when the offensive lineman was supposed to move, but the defensive lineman doesn't know what block is coming, doesn't know if it's going to be a man or a zone scheme, doesn't know if it's going to be a reach block, doesn't know if it's going to be a base block, doesn't know if it's going to be, I don't think they're going to be pulling, but there's a lot of different ways that goes. That works, like that is a direct to game translation of having to think and react on your feet as a defensive lineman. And then as an offensive lineman, you got to be able to, if you have that advantage, you have to win. And, I think you saw a guy that stood out to me. I was around the D-line a little bit, and we can get into a couple more guys that you might think stood out. I thought Elijah Carnell looked really good. He had a winning rep there in that drill, but also just watching him go through, they have a drill where they're working on their striking to make sure that they're striking the right way and they're maximizing leverage. They have a drill where they're going through the gates, to dip a shoulder and make sure that you're trying to get skinny through the hole when you have the opportunity to do, et cetera, et cetera. He just moves really well for a guy who is 6'5" and probably over 300 pounds now. That defensive tackle 4 battle that I think is going to be going on down the roster with Dallas Vakalahi, him, and Ty Blanding. I'm not saying that he has a lead or anything, but he's the guy to me that stood out in terms of size and movement skill. And whenever you pass the looks like test like that, you immediately kind of get that first impression bump. At least
Right.
that's what happened to me yesterday.
No, I agree. It's listed at 6'5", 299 right now. The Iowa State the redshirt sophomore transfer. A lot to like there from, as you mentioned, a looks like perspective. Up and down in some of those one-on-ones, but mostly up. I mean, he was the one that tossed Will Tompkins, right? That was
Yes.
a
Yep.
yeah, that was a or maybe that was Caleb Brewer. It was
No, it was Carnell versus
what
Tompkins. Yeah.
was it, Carnell? Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Brewer had a couple good reps as well. But you're looking at a guy that kind of fits that mold of going back a decade, maybe more than a decade. You know, the taller guys. Penn State had a run of, and this is not a comparison, like putting that out there first, but like
Yep.
Devin Still massive,
Yep.
Jared Odrick massive, like those guys that were not only just 300 and some pounds, but also
Daquan
they had the
Jones.
length to play inside and can really move. He's got that kind of frame. Now,
Yep.
he's not there yet. Clearly, he's battling for the number 4 defensive tackle job, I would say right now. But you've got an athlete there that kind of, I don't want to say breaks the mold, but is in the mold of what you've kind of been missing up front in terms of just those big, tall guys that can really do some damage inside.
Yeah, and I think has the versatility. Not that they play 3-in-1 technique, but the way I described it yesterday is depending on what the run does, you're a 3 or a 1 based on alignment and where the run goes. So 1 technique meaning you have to play a double team, and 3 technique meaning you probably have a 1-on-1. And he can win in either situation. You saw in that drill, he can win 1-on-1, but I think he can still grow and be 315 pounds at some point in his career. Any other guys that you wanted to talk about? Any other? The secondary is always hard to see. I know we got to see them in one-on-ones. We can talk in a little bit of the transition to the offense there if you want, or if there are any other linebackers, D linemen, or guys that you think were interesting we should talk about that stood out to you.
Let me see here. Going down the list, there were some guys that stood out. So secondary again was tough. Xavier Thomas moved over to safety, which was interesting to me in terms of the hybridization of that group, because you've got Zion Tracy kind of in that role, and that's where you saw Thomas in the spring was backing him up. So if you could possibly get, I don't know, you're just blending the lines, right? Because you got Christian Askew playing corner. He's listed as a safety. Even McDaniel playing safety or playing corner. He's listed as a safety. He's a second team corner right now. So you've got a bunch of ambiguity in those big, tall, long guys. Some of them are a lot of them 2026 class members, but even a transfer from Syracuse. So you've got just ambiguity all over the place there. And I think it's fine. Like, they'll settle in. They'll figure that out. Josh Johnson will get back in there, and we'll see where they're going to run him at. But they've got numbers back there. It's just a matter of finding the right spots for those guys. So you've got basically right now, Jamison Patton is your deep safety without Jeremiah Cooper in there. And then playing around on the outside, the expected starters, Davian Collins and Darius Dixon. Then Jameer Joseph, I think, is kind of in that tier, but not starting, if that makes sense. And they're going to move some guys around. It'll be fun to watch. And I did see during some of the team drills them playing, I guess, a 4-3. You know, we're gonna put Marcus Neal as that hybrid guy that could be considered a safety, could be considered a Sam linebacker. It doesn't matter for our purposes. For their purposes, it does. But John Klosterman was in there as a Sam linebacker, along with Cooper Ebel at Mike and Cam Smith at Will. So you've got a more traditional 3 linebacker set, if you will, even though that Sam Blair is a hybrid guy. So I think it's just interesting to see the difference of how they're trying to, I guess, mask that defense, if that makes sense. Like they're gonna do that. You can leave Zion Tracy at nickel and leave Marcus Neal at Sam, and somebody goes in motion, flip those two. It's fine. Like I don't think it changes all that much.
No, that's the beauty of how they're all lining up, and that goes back to the putting guys in position to be successful and not putting them in position to fail, and putting Zion Tracy down near the box in run situations against 12 personnel or whatever, just because, hey, we're in nickel. Like, that's kind of what they've been describing. That's what Dan Lynn's been describing. So, you know, seeing Xavier Thomas kind of being in that similar role, if he's the backup there, makes a lot of sense. And then Dan Lynn called that the big nickel. So they still won't call it a base defense. It's the big nickel when they put a linebacker out there in the slot. So interesting to see all that in day one from Penn State. And we didn't even get to see a lot of the fronts. I'm excited to see all of that when they line up with the D-line linebackers and how all of that really fits together. At least that was, I didn't see any of that when I was over with the offense, which we got to see a full 7-on-7 period. We didn't get to film it, but we got a full 7-on-7 period, and we got to see Alex Manske throw the football, and that was pretty good. We got to see Rocco Beck throw the football. It was pretty good.
So here's the deal. We get practice access not every day. It's going to be once or twice a week during camp, and then they'll change. I don't think there is practice access during the season. I have to look at the emails that they sent out, but there's a certain amount of practice that we can film or take photos, and then it's cameras down after a certain point. So yesterday, 7-on-7 was not during a camera time, so you didn't see what they were actually doing. We got mostly special teams drills, individual position drills, which are great for photos. It's just a matter of I don't think there's going to be the action out there that you want. You did run the linebackers versus, running backs video earlier, which was really good. But in terms of pure action video, there's a reason not all the clips are out there, because they basically were no, cameras down right now. And we can deal with that because we're professionals and we like to, keep our access, if you will. So just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here, it was most of the practice. I wouldn't call it the full practice, but the better part of 2 hours out there is more than enough for us. So, and we're going to get that again today. So looking forward to that, get it once or twice next week, and then go from there. And so I feel like it's helpful to explain to people what they're doing. And there's there's a social media blackout. There's no updates that we can go on during the event. So we like to.
Yeah, we normally have a thread that goes up when we give our live updates. And honestly, I apologize to our subscribers over to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com and the message board who like that. I can actually learn what's going on if I'm not looking at my phone. And also, I'm not going to send a bunch of texts that don't make any sense because I'm not looking down while typing. Because if the more football is so complicated, if you want to see a lot of stuff, you have to know, you have to see what's going on before the play. You have to watch the play, and then you have to think about the play afterwards. Be like, okay, what did okay. And if the whole time I'm trying to take notes of attendance and who's where and all these things, you're going to get a better product this way as well. So I appreciate the house rules, and we like to respect, our hosts and the people that are letting us hang out with them during practice. So for me, I was a kid in a candy shop because I was seeing.
I was going to say pig and excrement. Stuff. You were just so happy. You texted us. You were like, I am so glad right now. And then, of course, Nate's over there just jawing with whoever's within earshot, just maybe watching the field at times. But
If I wore hats, it would have been on backwards. And the shades would have been on. I had my hands on my knees. I was watching the whole play. I loved it. The 7-on-7 was great because you got to see a lot of different aspects of the offense put together, and you got to see how it went against the defense. So, again, I can say this about Alex Manske. We got to see him throw for the first time, and his footwork, his mechanics was a big thing I wanted to see. I thought that was generally a positive improvement. I'll leave a lot more of my thoughts over in the message board and in the article. But when you look at the way he was throwing, I would say generally a little more conservative than Rocco Beck. Rocco Beck was airing it out a little bit more, but he did have a great throw down the sideline. I think it was to Peter Gonzalez, who wasn't able to come up with the catch, but it was a good throw down the sideline into double coverage. But they were also running some quick game stuff. So if you say, oh, he threw the ball underneath a lot, and 2 of those throws were designed to beat cover 3, meaning flooding the defense and trying to get a quick completion, I thought he did that pretty well. So Alex Manske's debut, very good.
I would say exceeded expectations for me. Just I didn't see him much. I went over and watched the 7-on-7 portion, but in terms of number one, what they asked him to do based on how long he's been out of work, I think that's a good thing, and how accurate he was. I was, there should be more rust than we saw yesterday, and maybe there will be today. We'll see. But it was encouraging to come out of that and say, hey, okay, he exists. Number one, which is great, but. Number 2, he threw the ball pretty well.
And that goes back to some of the things we were learning before Big Ten Media Day about what they were able to do in June and July. I think we're still discounting the fact they can work with these guys during the summer now. Even if it is not a full camp, it's that they can get some instructional periods and talking to people. They were so excited to get him back in June and July. So he probably had enough time during those 2 months to really knock off that rust so he can hit the ground running during camp. And I thought that is, as you mentioned, that's how he looked very confident. Connor Berry still took the first second team reps with the 7-on-7 though. So they're still giving him, they're still giving him that deference as the guy who went out there and did it in spring camp. But then I thought Manske got an extended run as well. So he got enough reps that I feel like he got work. And then the top group was super interesting with Rocco Beck, Chase Soule, Brett Eskildson, Kobe Howard. Talking about the defense, I thought the offense ran a lot of 11 personnel in that particular group. Now, they still ran their 12 personnel, but they were out there with 3 receivers on the field, and Beck was aggressive, and I thought the encouraging sign was he's really accurate when he's throwing vertical leads down the field. Penn State's last 2 quarterbacks were not accurate throwing down the field. and that's not like outside the numbers where the defense is going to give you that ball. They're going to say, we're taking away everything in the middle. And if you want to go for a low percentage shot to your receiver down by the pylon and throwing it outside, go for it. And this offense willingly and happily will go for it. And Beck is a pretty aggressive quarterback with that. The unfortunate part is I don't think any of them were completed. So day one, knocking the rust off there.
Downside, just minor detail there.
I led with the good side. I led with the positives.
You did.
So
no, I mean he looked good throwing the ball. Just did not complete the passes. That's okay.
But they were accurate. They were on target. He dropped the ball in. They were outside away from the DB. I thought his ball placement was very good. Yeah,
I thought. This is looking at his body of work, looking at the stereotypes of his play or whatever. I did not expect his arm to be as sharp and as strong as it was, especially coming off of surgery on the other shoulder, but also had that was it the he had a shoulder surgery, or not a shoulder surgery, a shoulder injury to his throwing shoulder last year.
Yeah.
But he had zip, like he threw the ball. It was a strong ball. He missed one to the outside, and that thing got through a wall of people and went halfway into the defensive field. Like there was some zip behind it. So I was pleased to see that from Rocco.
I think that there is a misconception that because he's smaller, he has a bad arm, and it's always comparative, right? His arm is not as strong as Drew Aller's, but he doesn't have a weak arm. Like he can get the ball where he wants it on the field. And coming off that injury, being able to do all those things, I thought was really encouraging for Penn State. So the quarterback situation looked great. Receivers, Zay Robinson looked great. Yeah. And I described it this way that I now understand how people can simultaneously say Kobe Howard is a standout and also Zay Robinson might be the guy who's having the best camp, in spring or in the summer. The way they're going to use Kobe Howard and Quentin Martin, by the way, is different. And so they kind of occupy, and I know Robinson's going to be a part of that, but Robinson, his successes and kind of his usage was as a receiver, like out of the slot and things like that. Kobe Howard, at one point, you can see it on social media, motions into the backfield. They are motioning Quentin Martin from outside into the formation. They're using those two guys specifically in a positionless way, where they're going to line them up in a bunch of different spots to challenge the defense's rules and communication. I like that a lot. I think that when you do it correctly and it's not gimmicky, you are putting your offense in an opportunity to get some easy completions and also potentially some legitimate busted assignments by the defense. And this is what I mean. Looking at like some of the things that Andy Kotelnicki wanted to do, it was all about like these philosophical things of like we change the run front, then we change where the 3 technique and the 1 technique are, and there's like bada bada boom, biggie bang boom, and then suddenly, all right, now we've outflanked them. When all they have to do is run to the side that they are predicting you're going to run the ball to, like that your indications are through film study. It was all about like, what if we trick the linebacker into thinking like what I'm...
The Princess Bride is what you're saying, yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly right. Of like, you think I did that, but you thought I was going to do that, so now we're going to do this. This is much more of like, hey, what do we do when there's a receiver in the backfield? How do we handle a running back who's lined up out wide, now is motioning in the backfield, and can run the ball or catch the ball out of the backfield? They are creating actual problems for the defense based on personnel and alignment, and I like that a lot. I also like this, and I apologize for I apologize to Andy because I was supposed to get to this 5 minutes ago, but I'm very excited that we have one of our longtime sponsors back on the show, and that is Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. Let's just chat for a second about Andy and what he does. If it's been a little bit, but he's been a longtime sponsor here on the Recruiting Show. If you are a displaced corporate executive or you want to put your career in your own hands, check out myperfectfranchise.net. He's been doing this for a long time. He's almost a decade now that he has been helping people buy into franchises to manage for themselves so they can be their own boss. If you have executive experience, if you understand business, if you understand finance, if you have useful skills and not the difference between cover 3 and cover 6, then you might want to talk to Andy. Get on his schedule at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Visit myperfectfranchise.net or give him a call, 404-973-9901. Call him for a consultation. It's completely free, and his services, by the way, are completely free to you because he's done such a great job of finding great candidates. People come to him to get the next batch of leaders and executives for these franchises. So make sure you give him a call because everyone wants to make more money, including athletes who want to be compensated for their services. We aren't talking about that, though. We're talking about the Penn State offense, and we're talking about what we saw at practice on Wednesday. By the way, we got almost 250. We almost have 250 people watching the show right now. Like the video. It helps us out a ton. Like, you being here, watching the show, number one thing you can do. But if you're enjoying it, if you like the video, that's great. If you want to go even further, subscribe, because just like pop and chips, we have now put protein into our subscribe button, so you get 3 calories per subscribe click. Don't unsubscribe and then resubscribe. That doesn't work. It's a one-time bonus, so make sure you check it out. And follow us along for all our camp updates, because we're going to have a ton of those, as Fitz said. Most of them here at the beginning, but we're going to have a lot of updates from camp and a lot of insight into this team. Where else on offense do you want to go? I've been talking for a bit.
Yeah. Excuse me. I haven't been talking to her for a bit, obviously. Zay Robinson and Kobe Howard, you mentioned those guys. And I can throw Amari and Jackson in there, who's wearing number 9, by the way. One of my biggest pet peeves for this roster in the preseason, they had 3 number 19s, which was just insane. But now we've gotten past that. It seems Amari and Jackson wearing the number 9. And he was floating in there, and I think he looked good. It's going to take some time for him to adjust. And that's a guy that, we talked about earlier in the week on the show about buying stock and potentially making plays. He looked the part. He looked like some of those older-ish guys, like a redshirt freshman Zay Robinson, like a sophomore Kobe Howard, more so than just a true freshman going out there for the first time. So I thought that looked good. What's really interesting to me, T. Frank, we did depth charts last week, and of course we do the typical, here's what quarterback, running back, receiver, slot receiver, tight end, other tight end, we threw that in there. But how many times did we see that alignment line up on Wednesday? Not many, because it was, hey, slot receivers out wide receivers in the slot. Ben Bramer looking like a moose going in motion. He is a big dude. Like I've seen him in and out of pads.
It's jarring every time.
It is. It really is. Like he is. He's like, Jesse James was that way when he was here, just like a big guy, because you don't expect a guy to run like that. But he goes in motion quite a bit. They're moving him around, and they're going to try and get him the ball. Rocco Beck really, really tried to get him the ball one time yesterday. Then the pass probably should have been picked off. But you're looking at one of the focal points of the offense. But that's going back to that multiple look. Is there's no real structure of, yes, there's 11 personnel, 12 personnel, whatever. But there's no real structure of, this guy is a slot receiver, so we're going to, KJ Hamler, we're going to put you in the slot. Great. Kobe Howard, we're going to put you wherever we want to put you. And you're going to go with that. Zay Robinson, same way. Zay Robinson got loose for probably one of the longer games there. And as you mentioned,
probably the best play of the game. Yeah.
They confused the defense, and he ended up wide open. It wasn't, I don't know if there was anything that he did, but like he found himself wide open, and I believe it was Manske hit him, and he picked up a pretty good chunk. So that's what I'm looking for. Out of the slot, you're looking at slot, running back, out wide, anywhere that you can put those guys that they can make plays, you would love to see those guys certainly make plays. So excited to see that. No Gabe Burkle, which is not a surprise, but we're running through some clips of the tight ends right now. Mostly Bramer, Rappleyea, Cooper Alexander in there, as you would expect. Brandon Kordovich was in there, Finn Firmenich. So like there's a lot of talent there that tight end spot. Not worried about that without Burkle, but it'll be nice to get him back too, because he's a really good player. Like we forget about how good he is. We forget that his numbers were in line, maybe even a little bit ahead of Ben Bramer when Bramer got
I heard
hurt.
somebody talking about this at practice yesterday. Like literally the you're not talking enough about Gabe Burkle. No, is somebody off the side, just talking to one of the reporters that were there, and it just was like, man, Burkle's so good. He's not out here, but Burkle's so good.
Yeah, I mean, we forget about him because and I'm a big Andrew Rappleyea guy. As obviously we talk about that competition with Bramer and Rappleyea, but Burkle is a guy that like sometimes you think that these guys are just add-ons or whatever. He's a good player, so I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. That'll take a little bit longer, I think Matt Campbell said hopefully for game one. I don't know that there's any need to rush anybody back, but at the same time, like you want your full deck of cards as long as you can play. I
have made this mistake enough times. We saw it with Anthony Donko last year, and it's a little bit different for a guy who's maybe not as big, as 325 pounds. But if you're injured that late in the season, in November, I don't want to hear about it until October. Because, yes, there is the return to play, and you can be cleared to play after whatever date. Everyone, for certain injuries, 9 months, certain injuries, 7, 6, 5, whatever. The standard ones that we all know, right? 9 months is kind of the general return to play. Then that's for the physical therapy. That is to return to play. Then there is the trust your body, the athleticism, knock the rust off, reacclimating yourself to football, which also takes time. And so, one of the reasons I haven't been talking a lot about Gabe Burkle is just because I'm saving it. I'm saving it for when I think he's going to be on the football field. But you're absolutely right in the fact that he is going to factor into this offense. And if we are goldfish about it, we will forget about Gabe Burkle as well. But yeah, athletically and in a bunch of different ways, one of the top tight ends. I was writing about this. I was talking about it yesterday in the show. Realistically, from a talent perspective, they have 3 tight ends you could say could be in the top 5 of prospects in the 2027 NFL draft next spring. I don't know if that'll all happen because it also takes stats and plays, right? But talent-wise, I think they all fit into that, day 1, day 2, very early day 3 style of guys that are go to the NFL and play, and maybe in different roles, but can all play in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to go top 3 of 5. That's a big thing to put out there, but I think they're all 3 NFL guys. Like there's a guy like Burkle is probably going to slide a little bit because he doesn't have the sexy playmaking ability, but he can play. And the thing that you see in the NFL with tight ends is they're not always the best tight ends in college. Like they are guys that can grind themselves into a 10-year career by being really solid players. And I think that's probably where Burkle fits in. And Bramer's probably the highest draft ceiling right now because of his catching ability, but at the same time, I'm really excited to see where that goes. It's just one of those positions where you don't know what's going to happen, but you feel pretty confident that it's going to be good when it does happen. So they got a lot of talent there. So I think it's a big couple of weeks for Cooper Alexander in terms of what he can do, because hey, he wants to play too, right? You did not come from Iowa State to sit in purgatory for a year while those 3 play and then be the guy next year. He wants to play too, and this is his opportunity with Burkle out of there, and they'll run some 3 tight end sets and throw Cooper Alexander out there. So I think it's a big couple of weeks for him.
A couple things here in the chat just to clean up. We'll get back to the offense in 1 second. Want to take a quick break to talk to you here in the chat. John Walk says, appreciate T. Frank's journalist integrity, still rocking the swoosh, even though the program he covers now has the 3 stripes. This is a common joke here on the show, and I want you to know that I didn't even buy this shirt. I don't buy clothes. I got this one from somebody who was like, hey, this doesn't fit me anymore. So there's nothing wrong with it. It was basically brand new. I have no dignity is not the right word, but I don't care. I'll wash it and suddenly it's my shirt. The only people who I will stump for, because neither Nike nor Adidas has paid me anything to promote their things on camera, the only people who will get my endorsement is Roback, because they do send us stuff. I have, again, free stuff from Roback, which I conveniently, because I'm a slob, have right here. 20% off their game day collection, which is new. They got new stuff this year, but this is just their regular
stuff. They got new stuff this week, T. Frank. The Penn State stuff came out. Penn State came out with its collection on Tuesday, and there's new stuff on there. I love Roback too. This is not a Roback, but on 3 is not. Does not have the printing process for Roback. I wish they did, but no, it's great stuff. I love it. I wear it all the time.
Yeah, promo is in the description of the video as well, so if you want to go check out their game day stuff, I was looking on their site, and some of the best stuff, they have the Hezzy College hoodie with Penn State on it, already sold out of most sizes that make sense for human beings, so if you're an extra small or a double XL, you're good, but mediums, larges, extra larges, like, you got to wait until they restock. So go right now and use our promo code to get 20% off. I've got some stuff. I will be a model for them here in the near future coming, so you can check it out here on the show. Maybe next week, depending on when it all gets here.
You're going to knock Rocco off the Penn State collection page there at Roback.com, because he's a Roback athlete. Nick Singleton's out, Rocco's in. So
I'm just so good looking. Obviously, I'm the preferred model.
Well, everybody knows, based on earlier in the podcast, earlier in the show, that you wait until the end of the season and you buy the smalls that are on sale, and that's why you look so incredibly jacked. So
yeah, that's exactly right. My wife gets so mad at me. She's like, you don't look the way you think you look. I'm like, but it's the only way my arms look big. Anyway, John wanted to also know, you mentioned this earlier in prior episodes, but I believe Penn State's practicing in the morning. How'd that impact the broadcast? It's a nightmare, John. So they're going to be practicing in the afternoon the first 2 weeks, and it's going to shift to the morning, and we are going to have to pivot. And we are still discussing, because this is not a dictatorship. I run a democracy. We all are on this show together, and so we are still debating. There's 5 opinions. Actually, there's like 6 opinions, and there's 5 of us, so we're still debating how we're all going to handle that. But it is changing. For the season, Matt Campbell's press conference is on Tuesdays, so by definition, the Tuesday show has to move. I believe, as of now, that'll be on Monday, so we can recap the game, and that'll be at the regular time. But Wednesdays is going to be something completely different during the season, specifically, because we'll be there in the morning, and I'm not going to try and kill myself by leaving 30 minutes for me to get from here out in the woods into town, and then try to get perfect audio and video while sitting in the team meeting room of Matt Campbell, only to hear from people in the description of the YouTube video being like, the audio is terrible, I can't hear it. Like, well, I'm working with an unfamiliar environment. Anyway, sorry. Little too close to home on that last joke. Andrew Berger wants to know, what's wrong with Rojas rushing from the linebacker position as an edge rusher? Then you sneak Neal into the linebacker after the snap if Granville becomes a good edge rusher. So Andrew put this on one of our videos as well. I responded to you there, but it's a question that I think makes a lot of sense. Everyone wants to use the multiplicity. Andrew, that's going to happen.
Right.
The point I was making in the previous video that he's replying to is that you don't want to rely on that.
Right.
Fitz, the minute you have to blitz, you're not in a good position in the secondary, because now we know they're going to have 6 players in the secondary, and we can attack what will be weaknesses because you are 1 player down in that area. So if Tony Rojas is always rushing as an edge rusher, then you have a problem, because you also don't have him as a man coverage player. You can't play man coverage with him on the best tight end. That's what he's really good at. He's great in coverage. So that's the answer, Andrew, is you want it to be a choice and not a dictation by your personnel. Even if you have Max Granville developing into a great edge rusher, you don't want to do one thing all the time. And I was not saying never rush Tony Rojas. I was saying you want to be able to use him how you want to use him.
Yeah, no, I think I mentioned this before when I talked to Christian Smith the first time. We talked about edge rushers that weren't edge rushers, and Tony Rojas was the first guy he brought up. Like, this guy, he's got some snap off the edge. He's had success blitzing. They're going to do it. I agree. But yeah, I agree. You want Max Granville, you want Yvonne Kamashu, you want Ike Eziogu to be those guys. So we saw some Alex McPherson yesterday. Still curious if LeVar Arrington II, Deshaun Burnett, those smaller guys are going to factor in. I would guess that they're probably more so in the non-con than in the Big Ten schedule. We're going to see what those guys have. But yeah, they're just it's a crazy not mix up. It's a crazy delineation from what we've seen at defensive end over the years. So, like those guys are much bigger, much more stout, and I'm very curious to see what they do. And the other thing here is with those defensive tackles, like what do you is that where the Rojas numbers come from? Do you go to a 3-man front and bring Tony up that way? I was watching Deshaun Burnett going out of a 2-point stance yesterday rather than a typical defensive end 3-point. Like they're gonna like mix and match all over the place. Caleb Bacon, as we talked about earlier. So you've got opportunities to rush different guys from different angles, but also like you're not rushing Keanu Williams on 3rd down, right? You're either going with a different defensive tackle or sliding Eziogu inside and moving, bringing up Rojas or bringing in Granville. You've got options, which is the important part here. So I'm very curious to see how that evolves. And I don't think that we're going to know how that's going to look until maybe October, maybe the end of September.
Yep. Well, here's one situation. You have Caleb Bacon playing defensive end in a certain look, and you have 4 down defensive linemen, right? Suddenly you slant the defensive line, you shift the defensive line over. He's now an outside linebacker, and on the opposite side of the field, you walk Tony Rojas over, and now suddenly you have 2 linebackers, guys that have played linebacker at edge defender, and either of them can drop, and either of them can rush. And now as the offense, you've got 5 legitimate threats on the offensive line for 5 blockers. How are you handling that? Then from there, do they stunt? Do they move? Like the flexibility it provides you is unlimited. But you have to then make decisions about what are we actually going to do. We need to know what we're actually going to do and then practice it. You can't just say like everything's an option and then practice nothing. I also have to fix something here. I do want to wrap up with the offense here, the final 5 minutes or so. BWI 20. BWI 20. I just went into a long rant about Roback, and it's BWI 20, not PSU 20.
Yeah, they switched up on us, which is fine.
Yeah.
But
so make sure
more personal. It's more personal to us, so we would appreciate that one.
I need to double check that, Fitz. I need to double check that. So tell me a little bit more about the defense while I go track that down and hide an embarrassment for the final few minutes of the show.
More about the defense. Today I think we're going to see probably
that later.
No, we're going to see more of the secondary, I think, today. So if you look at any of the videos and stuff like that from practice, you're going to see some tremendous looks at the defensive line and linebackers.
Right? You're expecting we'll be inside because of the thunderstorms coming through?
We'll see. It depends.
Okay.
But you're looking, those guys are right in front of us. So most of the film that you're going to see from the defensive side of the ball is defensive ends are right here, or excuse me, defensive line right here. And defensive line is all together right now. Like there are 2 separate groups, but I was watching, I'm like, oh, Liam Andrews is with the defensive tackles. Oh, wait, but Deshaun Burnett's with the defensive tackle. Okay, that's not what's happening here. So they're mixing and matching those guys, and not so much in the actual position, like individual drills, but in the D line drills, if you will, they're getting all those guys together. So I think that's an interesting wrinkle, because it used to just be D tackles over here, D ends over here, do your things, which is fine. It worked really well. Thought that was interesting, but you're only going to see the defensive line. You're only going to see the linebackers because they're right in front of the cameras, really. I got a 300 millimeter lens. It's not getting the corner work that's over in the other corner of the Haluba practice field. So hopefully we see more of those defensive backs today. We're trying to work a deal with Penn State, so maybe we can get some actual good photos of those guys. But fingers are crossed for everything right now this afternoon.
Okay, I have the definitive answer. Thank you for doing that. It is promo code BWI20. This banner is old. So
our national nightmare is over.
That is my bad. I said it correctly. It was incorrect on the screen. I am updating that because they did change it, and I didn't change that banner. So yeah, code BWI20. The link in everything in the video is correct, so make sure you go check that out. Sorry about that. So other things we want to learn about today, I just want to see more samples of the offense and the defense. I'd like to see the defensive, everything I just described about seeing the fronts and seeing all the different things they get to. Theoretically, like I said before, they got to make some decisions about what they actually want to be, and what they practice is part of that. And so I'm not sure that I'm going to give gory details about everything we see, but I want to know, and I want to be able to give some general guidelines of how things are shaping up as the fronts are unfolding in front of us. And then for the offense, like more samples of 12 personnel, 22 personnel, 11 personnel, different packages as Fitz described of it will be amorphous, and like you're not going to have these hard designations of guys are lining up in these specific spots and running routes that are these specific things. The more samples you get, the better idea generally of how things are shaping up on that side of the ball. I do really like what their general, seeing it in Penn State colors of this offense beyond what they've changed to what it is now. It is nice to see it in Penn State colors with Penn State players as opposed to what we saw last year. An example, you see them going in 7-on-7 with 12 personnel, right? So 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, 1 running back. A lot of times people think that's going to be a lot of short passes. They're aggressive. That's where one of their Rocco Beck's favorite things to do is when you've got those guys on the field, then attack the one-on-one downfield. So the routes they were practicing, the things that they were doing, it's an aggressive offense. Even if it's going to be run heavy, I think the offensive passing concepts are pushing the defense and not letting them get comfortable. And then you add on the personnel usage, and now you have a very complex offense for the defense to contend with, even if for the offense it is relatively simple. It's a couple motions, and it's the same plays from different formations with different personnel. Legitimately, and not so simple in the passing game that it becomes predictable. So at least that is what I've seen on film. We'll see how all that evolves over the next couple of months, and then, of course, in the season.
Yeah, I think I can't wait for today. We get one practice today. I think we get one practice next week. Media day tomorrow. So definitely check us out at Blue White Illustrated. Again, now is the time to subscribe. We would really appreciate if you would take us up on our offer. It's the best offer of the year, I think. So check us out. 75% off for your first year, about $30 a year for new members. It's a good one, and we appreciate your presence and your presence on the BWI message board as well. So please come join us. I'm looking forward to practice once again today. I hope they're outside. I have to check the weather.
Me too.
But for practice purposes and mowing purposes. You're talking about just a more wide open look outside. And I want to see guys catch the ball down the field. I want to see guys that can become those game changers. There was a question earlier in the chat about who are we watching and like where those big plays going to come from. Still a bunch of answers out there that have yet to be, still a bunch of questions out there that have yet to be answered. And we're going to see if Nate's article from earlier this week about the questions that he has comes to fruition too, because that was a really good read. If you give it a shot on BWI. So yeah, ton of coverage coming your way. Most of it's happening over on Blue White Illustrated, but be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you get that notification when it comes your way.
Yeah, and we'll have highlights on social media as well, all that great stuff. I hope that we are outside, because I did not get a lot of time with the offensive line. And when we're inside, good luck. I mean, you might as well be looking through a glass bottle at a ship out in the distance to see anything going on with the offensive line inside Haluba Hall.
Yeah, and my camera just sucks. So, like, I need to be outside. The lighting in Haluba, of all the program upgrades they've gotten over the year, has not helped with photos from my end. So, but then again, camera's as old as,
The only thing I want to put a skylight in my living room, because I just want one, But the only place I want a skylight more is in Haluba Hall, so that we can actually see something while we're in there. But that is not a direct concern of the fans here on the show, because they just want to hear more about Penn State football, and that's coming up.
If you put that skylight in, the Michigan satellite over top is going to beam into practice, and then
right, of course, drones and AI. We'll chalk it up to AI. There we go. Fitz, thank you for your time today. As always, an excellent teammate. We're going to be back out at practice today, so make sure you follow us on social media, all those great things. I'm Thomas Reincar for Sean Fitz, for Ryan Snyder, Greg Pickle, Nate Bauer. We will be back here next week with BWI Live, but make sure you stay tuned over the weekend for anything that we have coming up from Penn State football. Who knows? I might get some crazy to want to do a breakdown video of something I saw. We'll do all that here this weekend. We'll talk to you later.